we will discuss about the pathological lesions in the stomach. In the previous class we had discussed about esophagus. Today it is the stomach. So before going into the pathological lesions, you must be knowing about the anatomy of the stomach, that it starts from junction cardia to junction pylorus, and it is a gland with cavity. It has cardiac and body, fundus, a pyloric antrum and pylorus. So its whole body has been divided like this. So this part, the pyloric antrum, is the seat of many diseases about which we will study later on. They are gastritis, peptic ulcer and gastric carcinoma. So so far the histology of the stomach is concerned, it is divided into mucosa, submucosa, muscularis layer and the covering of the peritoneum. And the mucosa is again superficial type and the deep superficial, deep mucosa. Superficial mucosa is comprised of a single layer of surface epithelium, that is tall columnar mucin secreting epithelium. It has a very rapid turnover and it always secretes mucin in abundance in the stomach. And then there is a deep mucosa which consists of the glands. These glands are cells of the glands differ from one part of the stomach to another part. Therefore, the cardiac glands of cardia, they are the simple mucin secreting cells and they form the simple tubular glands, whereas in the glands of body and fundus are comprised of 4 types of cells: parietal cells, peptic cells and mucin secreting neck cells and endocrinal cells. These parietal cells, that is also called oxyntic mucosa, secretes hydrochloric acid which has a great function in digestion. Then there is a peptic cells which produces pepsin, and then mucin and endocrinal, this intrachromaffin cells. So the secretory products and the glands of pylorus. In the pyloric region, the only mucin secreting neck cells constitutes the tubules and the glands. Here the gastrin producing G cells are also present, but no parietal cells or chief cells are found in the pyloric region. So the gastric juice liberated in the stomach consists of hydrochloric acid, pepsin, mucin and electrolytes, and these take part in the function of the digestion. So you have just seen that hydrochloric acid is being secreted all the time in the stomach. So this surface epithelium may get auto-digested. To prevent this auto-digestion of the surface epithelium from the hydrochloric acid, there are mucosal barriers which protect the surface epithelium. These mucosal barriers are mucus secretions, bicarbonate secretion, epithelial barriers and mucus blood flow. Whenever these barriers are broken down by any reason, then the pathological lesion initiates, like gastritis followed by infection with H. pylori bacteria, the peptic ulcer and duodenal ulcer, gastric ulcer, and if it can lead also to gastric carcinoma. So digestion in the stomach consists mainly the action of pepsin on the proteins in the presence of hydrochloric acid, which is liberated from the mucosa, and there are also vitamin intrinsic factor is also liberated from the pyloric antrum, which is responsible for vitamin B12 absorption from the large intestine. So in certain pathological condition, in diseases, these gastric secretions are gives altered value. To know these for the diagnosis of the diseases, gastric analysis is done in order to know the present position of mucogastric secretions. So gastric analysis denotes an examination of the gastric contents at various phases of digestion. So these laboratory tests are done to measure the gastric secretions like acid, pepsin, mucin, intrinsic factor and serum gastrin. Although gastric acid is continuously secreted, but it is in so much less quantity that it's become very difficult to assess the estimation of the gastric acid. In that case, what we do, previously we used to do that the different test meals were given which stimulate the oxyntic cells to liberate hydrochloric acid, and then we used to measure it, what we call a fractional test meal. But nowadays it is no longer in practice. So newer substances are there which immediately enhances the secretions of the particular secretion of the gastric juice, and then we measure it. So for this gastric analysis, the patient is asked to go for overnight fast for 12 hours. In the morning, stomach is intubated and there we collect 4 consecutive aspirations are done at the interval of 15 minutes. Then this fasting stomach juice is first examined macroscopically. The volume, normal volume of fasting gastric secretion should be 30 to 50 ml. If it exceeds 100 ml, then certainly there is some pathology. If the gastric aspirations are bile stained, then we think of some duodenal ulcer, bile tract diseases, duodenitis, hyperchlorhydria. If there is excessive mucin, we assume that some catarrhal infection are present in the stomach. Blood as coffee ground, if found in the fasting stomach, then it is indicative of either gastric carcinoma or peptic ulcer. Food, if is still present in the fasting stomach, that denotes the atony of the stomach or pyloric stenosis. After that, we use newer substances just to stimulate the oxyntic cells. They are the histamine, histolog. After that, the acid is measured by the titration method, and we call it maximal acid output. In the previous fasting stomach, we also measure by the acid secreted by the titration method, and we call it basal acid output. And after the stimulation of the oxyntic cells, we measure the acid concentration by titration, that is called maximal acid output. The normal values of basal acid output is 1.5 to 2 milliequivalent per liter, while the maximum acid output is 12 to 40 milliequivalent per liter. So if it has got higher values are found, then we think again of duodenal ulcer, Zollinger-Ellison syndrome or gastrinoma. If there is a lower value, we call it achlorhydria, that is pernicious anemia and achlorhydria. So likewise, we also measure the pepsin secretions by pepsinogen inhibitors. Similarly, mucin is also measured in terms of the protein content of the gastric juice. It should not exceed 1.8 milligram per ml. Then the test for gastrin is also done by the radioimmune assay. Similarly, for vitamin B12 absorption, the intrinsic factor liberated from the pylorus region is also measured by the scaling test using the radioactive substances, which also side by side gives the measurement for reduced pancreatic proteolytic activity. So this was the gastric analysis which is done in different diseases pertaining to the stomach. because the gastric juices are affected. After this, we will proceed to the lesions, pathological lesions in the stomach. First, the congenital, that means by birth. Then there is there is heterotrophic rests of normal tissues from somewhere else. You know from your anatomy that heterotrophic tissues means there is normal excessive tissue present at the abnormal position, ectopic position, which is not its proper position. Likewise, pancreatic tissues are sometimes found in the stomach, and the gastric mucosa, gastric tissues are found sometimes in the duodenum. This is what we call heterotrophic rests of normal tissue. Then there is pyloric stenosis. This pyloric stenosis is because of hypertrophy and hyperplasia of the circular muscle layer in the pyloric region, leading to the narrowing of the lumen of pylorus. That what we call stenosis, pyloric stenosis. It may be found congenitally, then it is called congenital hypertrophic pyloric stenosis or infantile pyloric stenosis, or acquired in adult it is also found. The exact etiology in the is not known, but if it is infantile pyloric stenosis, it is by birth, in which the 3 to 6 weeks old first newborn male infants suffer in 1 to 300 to 900 live births. These babies present with vomiting, which is very projectile in nature, and bile stain. Again, there is a visible peristalsis, that is the peristalsis moving from left to right, and palpable lump. It is better felt after an episode of vomiting in the mid-epigastric region, constipation and loss of weight. In these cases, if the baby is found, immediate surgery is done. Nowadays, laser rays are used to just wash away this hypertrophy and hyperplasia of the circular muscle layer. In adults, it is because of inflammatory fibrosis caused by peptic ulcer and sometimes by invasion of the tumors. Then there is some acquired conditions. So bezoars are the foreign bodies. Bezoars are the foreign bodies which are found in the stomach of the mentally ill children. You must have noticed in the mentally sick babies that they often pluck their hairs and swallow it regularly, so that in the stomach there is a bunch of hairs, what we call trichobezoars. Similarly, there are phytobezoars also. Sometimes these children are in the habit of taking some seeds, vegetable fibers, and these get accumulated in the stomach, leading to a condition called phytobezoars. And when the two together sometimes are found in some children, then it is called trichophytobezoars, and the surgeon has to take out these bezoars from the stomach because it leads to pain abdomen invariably. Then there are some there is inflammatory conditions also prevail in the stomach. There are two most common inflammatory lesions. One is the gastritis and the other is the peptic ulcer. So gastritis is the inflammation of the gastric mucosa. It is a only clinical condition because it is presents with the upper abdominal discomfort only, that is indigestion, dysphagia, but there are no any specific clinical illness which with signs and symptoms. The doctors cannot elicit any definite sign. Then there are no radiological abnormalities are also there. So this gastritis may be acute in nature or chronic in nature. Acute gastritis is a transient acute inflammation involving the mucosa of the stomach, and there is a neutrophilic infiltration. Etiopathogenesis The cause of this gastritis may be diet and personal habit, highly spiced food, excessive alcoholic consumption, heavy smoking, malnutrition. Infection, it may be infective like a specific bacteria, Helicobacter pylori, of which details we will know later on. Viral hepatitis, and these days in order to relieve from the pain, the people frequently takes painkillers like non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, aspirin, cortisone, indomethacin. They are mainly responsible for the irritation of this mucous membrane of the stomach, leading to acute gastritis. So whenever there is a reduced blood flow because of ischemia, there is a mucosal hypoperfusion, and whenever there is increased acid secretion and accumulation of the acid due to H. pylori, and decreased production of bicarbonate ion, all these leads to mucosal injury, which subsequently sets the acute inflammation. So pathological changes, when we notice gross or naked eye examination, the mucosa is edematous with abundant mucin with hemorrhagic spots. Microscopically, when you examine, mucosa is sloughed out, hemorrhages on the surface, and infiltration of the neutrophils are also there. So far the chronic, now the chronic gastritis. Chronic gastritis, of which there are no definite etiology, but it occurs with the advancing ages, and histological findings only we get in the biopsies done from the stomach. Etiopathogenesis, all the causative factors of the acute gastritis and recurrent attacks of acute gastritis. Besides this, whenever there is reflux of the duodenum, that is the duodenal contents which come in the stomach, infection of H. pylori associated with the diseases of stomach and duodenum like gastric and duodenal ulcer, chronic hypochromic anemia, and immunological factors like autoantibodies which are against the parietal cells and intrinsic factor. So all these etiological agents causes cytotoxic effect on gastric mucosa epithelium, which breaks the mucosal barrier and initiates the inflammation. Classification has been done on two ways: clinico-pathological classification based on the type of the mucosa affected. Type A, it is also called autoimmune gastritis because the mucosa involved is in the body and fundus part, and the parietal cells and the intrinsic factor, the antibodies against autoantibodies are generated in the body against the parietal cells and the intrinsic factors, and the antibody antigen reaction gradually causes depletion of the parietal cells, and therefore the depletion of gastric acid producing hypo or achlorhydria. Similarly, there is no secretion of the intrinsic factor, and gradually there is a metaplasia of the cells of the gastric gland like intestinal metaplasia or that of pseudopyloric type. So in order to compensate it, there is a hypersecretion of gastrin producing cells causing hypergastronemia. Then there is a type B gastritis, which is related to the mucosa of the antrum, more common because it is H. pylori infected. This mucosa causes the excessive secretion of hydrochloric acid, hence it is called hypersecretory gastritis associated with peptic ulcer. When sometimes when the two are combined together, then we call type AB gastritis in all ages affecting body, fundus and antral mucosa. So whenever these it is examined by naked eye, every type of gastritis, the mucosa may be normal, may be atrophied, may be edematous depending upon the stage of inflammation, and on the histological examination it depends upon the extent of the inflammation, whether it is limited to superficial mucosa or it has gone deep down the deep mucosa. Activity of the inflammation, it may be quiescent or active, or presence or of a type of metaplasia, whether it is intestinal glands type of metaplasia or pseudopyloric as it found in the pyloric antrum of the stomach. Therefore, histologically, 4 types have been noticed: chronic superficial gastritis, chronic atrophic gastritis, gastric atrophy, and miscellaneous forms of gastritis, chronic hypertrophic gastritis. So, superficial gastric, chronic superficial gastritis, inflammatory in these cases, the inflammatory infiltration of plasma cells and lymphocytes are seen in the superficial layer of the gastric mucosa, but there are no histological changes found in the deeper layer of the mucosa containing gastric glands. It sometimes resolves completely, or if the situation is worsening, then it passes into the chronic gastric atrophy. H. pylori, Helicobacter pylori, is the bacteria which is the causative factor for all active and quiescent cases. This bacteria has been identified in the lumen of the stomach on the epithelial layer. They have been identified by endoscopic invasive test or by specific stains. Most of the patients with this bacteria remains asymptomatic, but gradually it develops into other forms of gastritis and peptic ulcer. Again, if it goes on, then they are notorious for developing gastric carcinoma. So this bacteria, Helicobacter pylori, is a spiral separated gram-negative bacteria which is non-sporing and is an inhabitant of acidic media of the stomach, causing gastritis. It has a specialized adaptation features, therefore they can survive in the acidic media because it liberates all the time ammonia, and it has got the flagella, therefore it remains motile to swim through the viscous mucin of the stomach. So this fate of H. pylori, after months, if it remains, then it can produce chronic Helicobacter pylori infection, what we call chronic superficial gastritis. Most of the patients are asymptomatic till now. If after years together they are present in the stomach, they can produce chronic atrophic gastritis, or in the antral region, if they are prevalent, they can produce duodenal or gastric ulcer. In the atrophic gastritis, in the body, fundus or antral region, wherever they are, atrophic gastritis is there, it changes into a metaplasia, intestinal type of metaplasia takes them in them, and then this leads to gastric carcinoma. Sometimes there is a non-atrophic pangastritis. That means all the layers of the stomach are having inflammation, but there is no features of atrophy. In these cases, the lymphoproliferative disorders develop, which later on changes into marked lymphoma, mucosa-associated lymphocytic tumor. So we will come to chronic atrophic gastritis. It is the inflammatory in cells when infiltrates in deeper layer of the mucosa. This chronic atrophic gastritis develops, in which there is atrophy of the epithelial elements, destruction of the glands, and 2 types of metaplasia occurs there. Intestinal metaplasia, which mainly involves the antral mucosa, and the cells are changed into mucous goblet cells, spinal cells, endocrine cells, but there are no parietal cells. It is very significant in the sense that it has got very high incidence rate of developing gastric carcinoma. These areas are not colonized by the H. pylori bacteria, and sometimes there may be pseudopyloric metaplasia in which the body glands, which are replaced by proliferated mucous neck cells as in normal pylorus pylorus of the stomach, it is very insignificant because it is not going to develop into carcinoma. Then there may be gastric atrophy, chronic hypertrophic gastritis, and sometimes miscellaneous forms of chronic gastritis are also seen, like eosinophilic gastritis. In systematic allergic conditions, eosinophilic infiltrations are found in the deep mucosa. Then there may be granulomas in the gastric mucosa. If there is a systematic tuberculosis or sarcoidosis, in that cases these tubercles are also found in the deep mucosa. Hemorrhagic or erosive gastritis may develop in cases of administration of painkillers. So that finishes the pathological lesions found in the inflammatory pathological lesions found in the stomach. We will discuss the tumors and the peptic ulcer. We will discuss the peptic ulcer and tumors in the next class. Thank you.